shawarma, shrimps, ice cream, vanilla, strawberry, chocolate, name it and you have it. 16 hours later, you land at JFK Airport. Because you're a premium flyer, you get to the arrival hall, the limousine comes to pick you from the tarmac. Life is good. Right hand to left hand, let's show them. You're balancing as if you own this hall.
Let me drop this.
Now get a partner like this. Prof, let's do this. Engineer Adeola, get a partner. Tutu, yeah.
Tutu.
Now, Tutu, are we ready? Are we ready? Taufik, who took your wife? Are we ready? Get a partner, you will love this. You will love this. Someone help her out. Okay, look them in the eyes. Oh, yeah, oh no. You wish. Drive scene to...
The wise man from the west, please wake him up. Thank you so very much. Indeed, if your mind can conceive it, and you're intentional, deliberate, and consistent, you can achieve it. Just a little bit of belief. Forget what your village people told you. Listen to what God is telling you. You already know what He says you can do. It's now time for our very first session. Backbenchers, they sit here. Angels will not come. It's so hard to know who you're talking to. I can't even recognize you behind. If you know you're sitting from behind, sir, stand up. Sir, you, please, don't be angry. Yes, sir. If you're sitting from that row on both sides, please come forward. There are spaces in front. Please, let's fill it up. Please, indulge me. Officer, police is my friend. Come forward, oh. I don't know who will arrest. I said from that row, come forward, because you can't sit behind that woman. Sir, that seat is totally... Uncle, come forward. From that woman is a no seat from both sides. Members of the Vaughan family, Voice of Nigeria family, I see you. Please move forward. From that lady, which means after the camera, we only have 3 rows. If you're sitting after the 3rd row from behind the camera, please step forward. Some people just left the behind and stayed behind again. And so moving forward now to the session for discussion, Taufik had told us that it's a town hall meeting. And in town hall meetings, we don't come with presentation slides. We contribute to issues and open the eyes of others, illuminates them to issues of the day as the topic arises. So, permit me to invite the moderator for our first panel, Mr. Michael Oluwagbemi, partner of Lofty Inc., to please step forward. You thought it was the second session. I know what happened to you now, and I thought so too. Please, a round of applause for him. Sir, in my village, the town crier does not say everything. There's first village head, deputy village head, family head. So you're the family head of this panel. Please invite the members of your family. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Seems like we're just getting started. The intellectual part of this event is about to get started. And seeing we have a room full of intellectuals, it's my pleasure to welcome to the stage fellow co-panelists that will be discussing this very important topic, the challenges of capital project delivery. With all pleasure, I welcome Dr. Goodluck Enima Popo, the Key Account Director, Key Power. Please welcome me with a round of applause, please. It's not easy to be an account director at GE Power. As a GE fellow myself, I know that. So thank you for welcoming or for honoring us today. Also join me in welcoming Mr. Adebowale Oyinleye, the partner at Project Associates. Please give him a round of applause. Also joining us on the stage this afternoon is engineer Moreni Keji Anier, the CEO of Hotspot Network. Is she here with us? Okay, she has a representative. Can our representative join us? Oh, okay. I guess if you can communicate the name to me. All right. Ms. Chiaka Okoye, the Director, CR&I at Federal Inland Services, Inland Revenue Services. Can she join us on the stage as well? Thank you, madam. Anything men can do, women can do better. And she's the only one with money here today, so we'll be looking for money. Yeah, it's not just gender balance. She's the eluded one. She's the one with money. Joining us today is Mr. Bolaji Shotunde, the CEO of Savant Integrated Concepts Limited. Can you please welcome him with a round of applause? Yeah. You can take the long walk. They like to see you struck. Yes. Thank you. Keep clapping for him. Keep clapping for him. And it's my pleasure. I'll welcome myself. They've called me Mr. Michael Oluwagbemi, but because those of us who are professional engineers that have rightly earned our Quran, we take it very seriously that our title needs to be properly called. Engineer Michael Oluwagbemi is mine. Don't worry about it. I can handle it myself. It's my pleasure to join you all here. I'm partner at Lofting Allied Partners Limited, which is an innovation development company with specialization in project execution, delivery, and innovation management. I think I'm going to have a seat. Okay. Makes it easier. Thank you.
So we're going to try to make this section as interactive as possible. So not only will we be asking questions among ourselves, at some point we're going to turn to the floor for questions for our panelists. The topic today is capital project delivery challenges in view of the theme of today's conference, accelerating national development through best project management practices. First, of course, is to set the tone by taking a few definition. I'll put in a few definition out there. Here we're talking about capital projects, not all kinds of projects, which is defined as long-term capital-intensive investment projects with a purpose to build upon or to improve a capital asset. They cover large-scale and large costs, and they are relatively to other investments require more planning and process involved. Capital projects can be public in nature, for which reason we have someone like the FRS director here. Sometimes they can be private in nature, in which sense companies like Savant and Project Services and the rest of the panel, including GE, can discuss how they manage capital project delivery within their different organizations. And they can also be personal in nature, because I always try to remind everyone that when we talk about consumer, Dr. Kale is not here, but whenever he releases consumer spending in our economy, you see it accounts by far more than any other spending. So all of us in our families, every day we make capital project decisions. When you decide to build a house, invest in some mega electronic, if you're the one that likes to spy on your children, you want to install CCTV, well, that qualifies if you're looking at it from a personal spending point of view. In Nigeria in 2019, 15.7 trillion was budgeted across federal government and states. 33 states released their budgets publicly. Of that, 2.46 trillion was 2.07 trillion was planned to be spent by the federal government on capital projects, and then another almost double of that, a total of that, 5.518 trillion was actually spent between the federal and state government on capital. Was planned to be spent in the 2019 budget by federal and state government. Not all capital project expenditure plan in the budget is of the type of capital project we are discussing today. In fact, it was found out that only 60% of the projects that we call capital expenditure is actually capital expenditure. There's a lot of other things that are embedded in there sometimes, empowerment and all of these things. Again, this is the problem of budgeting that we all know about, and I think Dr. Adiola has spoken in the Stakeholder Summit 2 weeks ago. However, we should remember that private spending in Nigeria represents 76% of the spending economy. Invariably means that we are looking at about 47.5 trillion if we consider the total spending in the economy on capital expenditure by the private sector. That will include companies as well as personnel. So if we add all the spendings we did last year on our houses, on our own mansions, or as the case may be, inclusive of buying capital goods, equipment, then we might be, Nigerians spent about 47.5 trillion naira. So that's quite a lot. The challenges we experience across board, whether it's private, it's public, or personal, seems to be the same. Planning is an issue, procurement is a challenge, funding is a challenge, monitoring evolution, when you talk about the 4S, in terms of safety, scope, schedule, and spending, and sustainability, as our keynote speaker discussed. In terms of project sustainability generally, we see that there's a lot of abandoned projects in our country. Our 12,000 federal projects are said to have been abandoned between 1962 and 2012. They're said to have cost the country about 12 trillion naira in 2012, and a revaluation in 2017 was said to be costing us about 17 trillion naira. So this is just giving you a quick overview of what challenges we are facing when it comes to capital project execution in our country. And I've just talked about the public sector alone. If you just take any drive across our country, say you drive from Lagos to Ijebu, to Abeokuta, to Ibadan, you will see many abandoned personal projects as well. So we are not just talking about the government project is what we can measure, but even more so, there are many projects which most of us start at our personal level that we don't even complete. So today we are here to talk about capital projects and the impact, the challenges that we are facing in executing capital projects in Nigeria. I'll start with a lady, because they say ladies first, so you'll do the honor today. Question to you. In your opinion, why do capital projects fail in this climate? Just recently, the Minister of Finance was talking about the Abuja CCTV project, of which Nigeria is still paying towards a loan of about $250 million. And yet we don't have a CCTV project, but we are paying for the loan. Why are we failing?
It's a huge topic, so I will just take it from the beginning, which is from the conceptualization of the project. I'm going to leave out planning because if the concept is wrong, which is the beginning, because with that concept also comes ownership. So if you don't have an executive sponsor, an owner of the project, at the very beginning, during the conceptualization, taking that ownership, then that project is deemed to fail.
G-Man.
Oh, okay. So I think I would align with what Madam said. To be very honest with you, one of the biggest challenges with our capital projects, especially as it relates to government, is poor conceptualization. I will explain that very briefly. If you conceive a project, okay, and you do not have line of sight, for instance, to the funding, end-to-end funding, that project itself is already destined to fail. And we've seen a lot of projects, government projects that, transcend from one administration to the other. And all of these projects rely on annual federal budget. I mean, you were just giving us numbers, right, in terms of fiscal budget. The current year we have, for example, if you pick the federal government, the current year we have was about 9.3 trillion, right? But if you look at the revenue, line of sight to revenue, it's about 8.1 trillion. And if you do the simple arithmetic, we have a deficit of about 2.1 trillion. And government, and then if you look at the capital allocation for that particular budget for the current year, was just about 2.1 trillion. What that means is that government is thinking that they will borrow money from offshore to fund our capital projects. Offshore money don't come very easily. There are a lot of costs to it. The country where this money is coming from determine how the money will be spent or the terms and conditions for the money. So I would say that one of the reasons why some of these projects are abandoned is because they were wrongly conceived from financing standpoint and from the structural standpoint. When I mean structural standpoint, I would imagine that because government has set up a department called the RCRC, most of our projects should be developed along PPP, okay, perspective. But that's not what we're seeing these days, okay? PPP simply means that bulk of the money comes from the private sector. Government created the regulatory and enabling environment for the project to thrive. But we've still seen even some of the projects that have been consensual, other people still fail, and largely because of government. And I can give example. But for example, let's take the Lekki-Aja Road. That's a 50-kilometer road, and some of us know about that road very well. It's a concession project over the last 10 years ago, but the project failed massively. Till today, I think just about half of that road has been constructed, just 50 kilometers of that road. And government has even bought the project over from the concessionaire. So it's very dicey. We are very unstructured in terms of the way we conceive government project, capital project.
Thank you very much. To the next panelist, we talk a lot about government, and I'm going to throw it back at us here. Are we not experiencing as much failure in private sector projects as much as government? If funding were the problem, if government funding were the problem, shouldn't that automatically disappear when you now deal with the private sector? Or is there something that we are not interrogating? Is it a cultural problem, perhaps? Our attitude to planning? Are we people that like to see something and then just start it and hope that God will help you complete it? Is that our true culture and attitude? Is that what we are? Is that a real problem here? You are in the private sector, you deal with private sector projects a lot, you develop both on the IT side and as well as the infrastructure side. What is your experience with private sector project sponsors and owners?
Okay, thank you very much. I think what you raise is quite important, but I think let me start from the government side and I'll use that to explain the private side. The major problem we have from the government side is our strategic plans. If your strategic plan is wrong, then every other thing you are going to do will be wrong, just like they said. Now, if you have a wrong strategy or a strategic plan in place, when anybody comes into power, he does not buy into that strategic plan because it's owned by the person who is in power at that particular point in time. So ultimately, any project that is based on that strategic plan just fails. That's the problem. Now, if we look at the private sector, really I think the private sector have done much better than the government. From little experiences that we have, let me take an example now. I'm not involved in that particular project, but let's take an example of the Dangote refinery. It's one of the biggest projects in Africa as a whole. But then, look at where they are now. They are almost completing it. Why? Because the person who is on top of it has a strategic plan. He knows where he's going. And good for him, he is the head of that organization. So he can make the decisions that are needed to make sure the project succeeds. So individually also, even whether you are private or you're in government, if the reason why you're embarking on that project is actually genuine, you have a strategic reason for doing that project, most likely that project is going to succeed. For example, most people that start building their personal home, maybe the first one, most people don't have issues except probably because of funding, but they will be committed to that project. But whenever maybe someone decides to go and do maybe a shopping plaza or something like that, it might not have issues because he's doing it as a business venture, and probably not matching it with his own financial cash flow. You should say, so the strategy is very, very important. But then also, if we look at from the government side, there's something I call subjective political risk. Before, our main concern is just about once there's a change in power, a new person comes in, that means the project ends. But again, we have come to understand that even when there is no change in power, but if the person on the seat changes, then that has become a risk also. Something is very common, I'm sure those of us who are involved in government projects. There's something they call the Minister's Project, the PAMSEX project. That means that those two projects are going to be funded more than any other project that are in their portfolio. That's what is being done. So if the minister is changed, even though it's the same president, the same government in power, that particular project is going to suffer because it was the minister's project. Even as an individual now, if, let's take a family, if the one who is the head of the family decides on embarking on a project and the other people in that family are not carried along, if, for example, anything happens to him, most likely that project is also going to suffer. But if there is an ownership, the family takes ownership, even if the head of the family dies, the family is going to continue with that project until it is completed. So those are the key issues that I think we need to look at, and these are the things that are driving, part of what are driving project success in Nigeria.
Thank you very much. He talked about project ownership, which again goes or segues into this whole idea of stakeholder management in project management practice. In your own experience as servant, in terms of developing private sector or public sector projects, how will you rate succession planning internally at project ownership organizations or stakeholder engagement in project ownership organization? And how does that feed into the likely success or failure of capital projects?
Okay, thank you. I must but probably just say one or two things, basically. From where you stopped, I think the fundamental issue again is trying to understand why this capital project and quote are actually brought to the fore. Why are we actually engaged in this capital project? Are we actually looking at the end product of the citizenry or somebody somewhere? Minister's project, permanent secretary's project, governor's project is being carried out just for a particular purpose, which is completely an individual thing and not systematic. All right? So in as much as the political party in code does not change, if the individual changes, you begin to realize that most of these projects are actually tied to individuals and not the government agency or institution itself. So therein lies the primary or fundamental issue of why this capital project fails. I'm bringing back to private sector where we, in the last years, have dwelt in. It's a bit different, all right? However, we've also got involved with private stakeholders where we have to deal with multiple stakeholder management system where you are dealing with not an individual, but multiple individuals within a particular system with different ideologies and different mindsets, and everybody at some point in time trying to also make sure that they have a say. All right, yes, we do the stakeholder analysis thing. We come through the process of, oh, let's know that this is the person we are dealing with. You do all the analysis, you put on all the soft skill idea you can know. You send an email to this, you text this one, you do this. But we still realize that a fundamental issue is still being the core of why this project is being put in place, the business case itself. What exactly are you trying to achieve? And from that process, we've been able to deal with stakeholder management when it comes to ensuring that when you start a project, you finish, meaning that everybody has a stake, understanding what their role is in that project, and making sure that each and every one of them are or satisfied, as it were, but making sure that your eye is still on the goal, basically.
Can I just make a little comment on that stakeholders engagement? Stakeholders engagement has become a very critical element for project success, to be very honest with you. And I'll give some few examples. Some of the abandoned projects today is not necessarily because there is no funding. It's because the communities have not been properly engaged. Now, I'll give you an example like the transmission project, some of the abandoned transmission project with TCN and most of those agencies. You will realize that At the beginning of the project, you carry out environmental and social impact assessments. That is just to fulfill perhaps the due diligence or the funding requirements. But you have to execute that plan itself during the execution stage of the project. So when you carry out the social part of that environmental impact assessment, and this, again, this is why the oil and gas company are largely successful, because every oil and gas company or IOCs has a department called the CASHIS department, which is the community affairs. And so before they embark on any exploration or production project, they have to engage the community and know what the community wants. Sometimes they have to execute MOUs, okay? And during the execution of the project, they have to fulfill all of that. But with government, it's difficult, okay? And during the project executions, you don't properly carry along the communities. Like the Ajah Expressway project I talked about. It failed because of stakeholder engagement, period. During the execution of the project, less than 10 kilometers from law school to where the first toll gate is, government installed first toll gate. As the project continues, another toll gate, they started the construction of another toll gate around Chevron site. The community along that corridor said, no, this can't happen. We are taxpayers. You can't construct 50-kilometer road and put up 3 toll gates. The simple reason is because at the conception of the project, the stakeholders along that corridor were not carried along. Recently, I started working on the project, and to be honest, there was 100% foreign fund to solve that project along Ikotekpene, Ikotabasi, okay? And the simple reason why that project could not kick off was just because the project is almost like, let's say, 80% completed, but it's been abandoned for close to 5 years now. And because of that, we can't produce or generate generation capacity to wheel into the grid just because of 20% scope of that total project. Why? Because of community issues. And that's why World Bank supported project will always demand that stakeholders engagement. So I'll stop here.
Thank you very much. Now, I want to, everyone have talked about funding, and we have a funding agent sitting here when it comes to our public sector. FIRS is not only responsible for collecting taxes on behalf of the federal government, but actually on behalf of the federation. Some of the taxes you collect end up with our state governments, and as well as our local governments. In your view, how do we begin to ensure a linkage, a true linkage between budgeting and funding? Because what we see today is that we predicate our budget on some kind of fantasy that the money will come. And the reality is the money doesn't just come. So how do we begin to better align the planning? You talked about project planning for the country. That is the budgeting process. The planning process is the budgeting process when we do our MTEF and we do our annual budget. How do we align it with the actual funding, the likelihood, based on real likelihood of that money coming in via revenue agencies like yourself? How can we get better alignment?
Okay. With all the reasons for project failures that we've all identified, I put it in a nutshell to say capacity is a big issue. The competence of people that are involved in implementing these infrastructure projects. I like to use the word infrastructure project because the word capital projects have also been bastardized somehow to an extent. So you see recurrent costs being put as capital. So I try to distance and say, let us call it what it is, which is infrastructure projects. The capacity of the persons to manage it from the beginning or even understand what needs to be done, the availability of the resources. So even if when you get somebody who is competent or has the capacity to carry it through, because of the way government operates, the person is deployed out of that project. You bring in a new person who has no interest, so is sleeping on the project. Now, even to provide funding for a capital project, we've all identified that infrastructure projects are long-term projects. So being long-term projects, so let's assume it's 1 billion project. 1 billion project is going to run for 4 years. So the first year, what exactly are we going to achieve in that first year, and how much money do we need? A situation where you then probably might need 250 million, But because the budget, or the cost of the project has been identified as 1 billion, you now budget 1 billion. Now, when you budget 1 billion and you give her that contract during procurement process, there is also the eagerness to perform, because the National Assembly is not going to give you kudos for saving money. In fact, I was shocked when I was told one day that we're not in the business of saving money, so we're not asking you to save money for us. So you're eager to show that your budget performance is good. So you budget the 1 billion and you pay the contractor 1 billion. And I tell people, if I'm a contractor and I have done 100 million job or 250 million job, and you're paying me 1 billion, I have to be a Mother Teresa to come back and complete that job. So what happens? That project is abandoned and then classified as what we know today as failed. So capacity and competence, and then continuity of personnel in that project is key to driving success for any infrastructure project.
Very much. Mr. Lubawale, she touched a little bit of something when she indicated that there's this 4-year political cycle, which is our reality, especially when it comes to our federal states, and maybe even shorter for some local governments, because I know some states have 3-year tenures, or even 2-year in 1 or 2 states. How do you plan for the long term? I mean, you can look at the development of the United States and China in the last 50 years, and you can see why the Chinese are rubbing the Americans' face in the mud when it comes to developing big mega projects. Because the Chinese do not have to deal with 4-year political cycle. They deal with maybe infinite political cycle, because the Communist Party is one and will always be one, and you don't have to worry or watch your back. Given that we want democracy and we want our political appointees to be tenured or term limited, how do we balance project cycles that require 5, 6, 7, even 10 years to develop? Mambila project, for example, will take us over 10 years to develop. That is easily 2.5 tenures. Assuming you even have one person, at least you're going to have one change of president over the life of Mambila, excluding project initiation and project planning. We're just talking about execution, right? So it's probably a 20-25 year project if you think about the whole project cycle. How do you balance that in a political environment of 4-year elections?
Okay, thank you very much. Interestingly, there was something I discovered recently that I don't know concerning Nigeria's constitution, the details actually, but I discovered that there are some countries, in particular some states, especially in the US, that don't actually do annual budgets. They do biennial or triennial, because that is what suits their system. That there is no point in doing a budget that you know it's not going to work in a year. So why should you continue doing that? I think part of what the moderator was trying to make us understand is that why do we imbibe some cultures that are not working for us? So if an annual budget does not work for us, let's think. Let's sit down and look at what is going to work for us. However, having said that, I still believe that part of the challenges we have is actually in the people that are running most of these things we have in the country. There was a particular hearing in the National Assembly I attended about 2-3 years ago. And I was surprised. They were talking about a specific project, and it was obvious that the government does not have the money to fund the project, some other sources of funding for the project. However, those who are advising the minister, because the minister was there, those who are advising the minister were telling him that this project must be funded from the budget. And you know that I was really angry that day, because when I spoke, I said, look, this issue you are discussing here is a no-brainer. You know you don't have the money. There are people you can engage that have the money. Even if they are charging you 35%, you are better off knowing that the funding will come and you will finish it in 10 years, rather than building it on a budget that you know that in 25 years you don't even know if you can complete it. I was surprised that even at that level people are thinking like that. And most shocking was that after the hearing, some journalists went to meet the chairman of the committee. What he was telling them was totally different from what he was telling us at the hearing. I was shocked. I was just wondering, what is wrong? But it shows the level of I don't know, is it decadence that we have in our system? It's the people that will go down to the issue of ethics, because that's where the crux of our problem is. Most people will trade whatever is being given on the altar of what they want to get. That is the problem we're having. Why should and I'm sorry to say this now because we are colleagues, we are professionals, there are some people that are involved in projects and you know that what you are doing is counterproductive to that project. But because it's going to benefit you, you continue to do it. Those are the challenges that we have in the country. People are not standing up to do what they know is right. They would rather do what the quote and unquote, the people that have put them in place want them to do, which is wrong. And I think that's one of the reasons why projects will continue to fail. Because you have been taught, most of us have gone through the processes, the knowledge areas of project management and all that, but how many of us are going to stick by those things when we are confronted with a project sponsor who is saying something different in the open and is trying to implement something else in the room? How many of us? Those are the challenges that we have.
All right, thank you very much. A round of applause on that. I think the issue you raise concerning ethics, I think is probably the reason why we always have professional bodies. Be it PMI or any of the chartered institutes, as the case may be, should be there, and the president is here with us today, should be there available to discipline members that go out of their way to please employers while negating the principles of the profession. I mean, that's the point of having chartered bodies. Now, talking about Dr. Goodluck, we're talking about capital projects, so we should be talking about capital in some sense. Capital formation continues to remain a challenge in Africa. We see every year the gap between the funding needs and funding requirements and funding available continues to widen. But it is also true that all over the world, the return on capital, Africa has not done badly, to be honest, in the grand scale of things. Projects that have been invested in Africa over time tend to make money, sometimes even faster than other parts of the world. The cost of capital across the world has fallen outside of Africa, but it's still very high in Africa. So there's an opportunity to move capital from where the return on investment is lower to where it is higher in Africa, even though with more risk. What do we need to do to continue to bridge the funding gap? Coming from an international company like yourself, which I would think is a foreign direct investor in Nigeria, what do we need to do as Nigerians, as Nigerian government, as Nigerian people? Because I say this as Nigerian people because I also know the impact of media publicity. Nigeria is by far not the most dangerous country in the world. But if you read our Twitter feed, it appears it is. So what role do we as citizens, as patriotic citizens of our country, have in terms of pushing a positive image of our country to attract the right capital into the country and ensure that we balance and make up the gap?
I think this is a very, very interesting question in terms of ability to attract, I would say, foreign funds into the country for our capital projects. Today, if you look at our Nigeria leading trade partners, we say China, it's about 19 to 20%. We'll talk about US, less than 9%, about 8%. Talk about some countries in Europe, Netherlands or wherever, still around 8%. So bulk of the money comes from China, to be very honest with you. We need to do a better job of showing that we are disciplined people. The cost of governance, the world is watching at us. And this money that we are thinking the country has opportunity cost to them. And I'll give you an example. Take, for example, the NLNG project, the new one, the Train 7, right? I hope you know that today there are more discoveries of commercial. South Africa, Angola, they will now embark on LNG projects. So we have no exclusive right to attract money into this country except we show serious discipline. Government needs to have a coordinated approach to developing projects. Today, they are all manner of random projects. We do not have an integrated national projects that are priority projects that we are focusing on. We don't have. There's no blueprint. I've not seen, maybe there is, maybe in theory, I have not seen any blueprint saying in the next 10 years, this is where we want to go. Most of the projects we are also developing are not self-sustaining. I think when you started, you talked about the CCTV project. You referred to that. That's about $430 million project. 70% of that money came from China, I hope you know. Nigeria paid the counterpart funding. It's supposed to be a PPP project. But it was wrongly conceived in that you ought to, like the Abuja airport, I will still come to that. But the CCTV project has failed. And we have to pay that money to Chinese government for a project that has failed. If you drive around the whole of Abuja, you see all the CCTV camera project. They've stolen all the panels, the camera, everything is stolen. And yet we are paying for that. Because, like Madam said, there is no ago to advocate for some of our national projects. To be honest with you, they are now dictating how their money to be used. And today, 2 years ago, they said 60% Chinese content. It must be Chinese content. Chinese content starting from Chinese EPC, Chinese construction company, to their staff. If you go to some of these Chinese companies today, over 80% of their staff are all Chinese. This is the truth. Toll roads, good roads, but they are tolled. So people pay for their services. This money is used to develop the other Emirates cities. But here today, we depend on annual budget to even maintain the few small roads that we have. It's not sustainable. We have to develop projects that can pay itself over time. I will stop here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I'll quickly reverse the panel. If you have any question, please do indicate by raising your hand. And okay, go ahead while she's getting the phone.
Okay, just taking from where you stopped with regard to discipline. Because of the nature, I guess it took Taufik and co a lot of effort to get project management recognized as a career path in the civil service. So that was a good kudos. But I was thinking that by now, we would have entrenched PMOs and insisted on having PMOs in all the MDAs. I guess that's going to be the next advocacy. But it's going to take a tough time. Now, before even when you set up PMOs, how are the PMOs resourced? I was very amazed when I heard NASA say 60% of their staff are PM certified, and I'm like, even the PMOs in MDAs don't even have 10% certified resources in them. Now, just like what have happened to accounting in MDAs, by having the OAGF deploy resources to MDAs to manage, to head the finance and accounts department, and then having chartered accountants at all levels. I think that's the point we should get to. If we actually want to create discipline in managing projects, unless that happens, we will have somebody, I don't want to say teacher, I don't want to do, but somebody who does not even understand what really is a project, managing projects. And as long as we have those people managing projects, you won't have the discipline, you won't have the delivery, neither can you be accountable. And by the time we instill this discipline, then you can begin to hold people accountable for failed projects. But operating the way we are today, it's not going to happen. So I do believe that this body, all of us here today, will begin that advocacy of enshrining PMOs, holding them accountable, and then whichever chief executive that comes in is no longer going to be able to dismantle that, because the guidelines and the processes, just like you have financial management rule, the project management body of knowledge will also have body of rules for managing projects in the MDAs. That's
Thank you very much.
Prof has a contribution.
Yes, I think Prof probably has a first question or comment. Okay.
Thank you. I've listened and I'm impressed. But I think that the keynote address presented a synopsis of our problem. We do not have mission statement. And once you don't have, you go nowhere. Because I've been in planning, public service, when last did Nigeria have what we call a consolidated national development plan? We get up now, we just talk about strategy. You cannot have strategy without a plan. What does strategy do for? I know that the last we had was fourth national development plan, and people started talking about rolling, non-rolling, and all whatnot. There is no buy-in, whether we like it or not. And because of there is no concerted effort somewhere, there is no national ethos, this is where we're driving to. And that's why we start having permanent secretaries project, managers project, XYZ's project, until we have a direction. In those days, whether we like it or not, they perform better in this area of public, because I'm talking about the public sector. The private sector, they know where they're heading to. They know how they're getting their money, and they know the return investment they're expecting. But we don't have that. All we do know is just get on anybody who comes in. This man, I'm sure most of us are aware of what is happening in Ekiti. Ekiti wants to establish an airport. And look at Ekiti and their brother state. Does it take 5 minutes to drive from the other to this? You go to the cluster in the eastern states, from Enugu to Owerri to Port Harcourt to Yo, probably tomorrow Abia will tell you our own airport. There is nothing. All we do know, just like most speakers have said, is that until we get down to the nitty-gritty, and that was why I listened when Engineer Adeola mentioned the key things, until we say, this is where we're heading to. Whatever project that comes in must be fitted into it. It's not any man bringing what he thinks he wants to do. I've seen it, and that's why we have 1001 abandoned projects. Even those of us in higher institutions. A new vice chancellor comes, he thinks this is what he wants. And it goes, and you see resources being wasted. We need to get back to the basic. And I'm sure where we're not getting it right, it's unfortunate we can say it. Most of our political leaders are Lilliputians. They do not understand what they're supposed to do. Somebody who buys the certificate, makes an MBA, collects MBA from an institution. Yes, I belong to the institutions. And you know he doesn't know the left from the right or what. What he needed is a certificate to give him a position in National Assembly. Because some of us have had it. Prof, what can you do to hasten my decision? Because he wants to be the chairman or vice chairman of our committee. Until we get back to doing those things, it doesn't matter the grammar we speak. We'll get nowhere. Thank you.
Right? So I would say that we need to do a better job of showing the world that we are disciplined with the money that is.
Yeah, quickly.
So,
I think we have
sir,
5 minutes. I want to say something quickly.
Okay, sir, before he says something, how many questions do you have him for? Because I think your time is wounding up.
One more, and then
And it has to be a woman.
the woman, yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Mention, first of all, in the person that at some point in time, perhaps we all need to go start learning how to speak Chinese, as the Chinese are gradually taking over everything, you know. But there's a fundamental thing I think we also need to take note of when you talk about stakeholders engagement. Most of the time, we look at the external parties, we look at the environment, we look at the client, but as professionals who are not even involved in that project, we ourselves ought to be stakeholders who should come out and speak about these things on a regular basis. The budget came out, for instance. All right? You saw the analysis that came of the budget. As a professional body, as a professional institution, what is our own role in calling them down to order to say about things? Now, let me give you an instance. Just last week in Lagos State, there's been so many talks about bad roads. Guess who came to the road to protest about potholes in Lagos State? The lawyers. The lawyers went on a mass protest to protest about potholes in Lagos State. And the governor had to call for a meeting, the town hall meeting. Okay, let's discuss this. As stakeholders, we need to also understand that we don't necessarily have to be a part of that project or particularly when it comes to government projects, for us to also raise our voice and speak out about things. We can all talk about things that are going on here, but outside of this room, what are we going to do? How many of us are going to contest for political office tomorrow? How many of us here who are competent here, who know the right thing to do, will actually go to the local government? There was a guy in our area, okay, a organizer that will see every morning, okay, for your tires. And they brought this gentleman to the office of one of our principals one day and told him that, see, this man wants to contest for the local government chairman. And I was like, I know this for organizer. He said, no, that's the local government chairman coming, It's not even whether you vote for him or not. We are just trying to tell you that he's going to win. Lo and behold, that guy became the local government chairman of that community that principal was working, a professional. And that is another challenge we have. We as professionals are comfortable sitting down here, lovely auditorium, air conditioned, tight suit up, do a communique, and we stop there. We need to do more.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question?
Over here.
All right.
Good afternoon. My name is Audiladi. I'm the CEO of Purple Ribbon Beauty and Hair. My question is this, but before I ask the question, I just want to say something briefly. There's this saying that you don't know you're a thief until you are given an opportunity to steal and you don't steal. That's when you can agree if you're a thief or not. My question is this: do you agree that corruption and illiteracy is a key factor to lack of effective project management in Nigeria, not just in Nigeria, in Africa? Because with all the points that you've mentioned, there's this thin shadow of corruption lingering behind every statement that is said. You can imagine a project that has gone 80% deep and 20% more to go. It has to be cut off. So do you agree that corruption and illiteracy among our leaders and even among Nigerians is the reason why we're where we are? Thank you.
All right. I will try to answer that question by taking our minds back. I have visited some villages when I was growing up, and I'm not quite sure I saw so many abandoned projects in villages. What I'm saying is this, that then they seem to have a system that works for them. Mostly, probably by communal effort or some other kind of effort, they are able to engage on projects and complete their projects. That's on the community level. So the illiteracy is not the problem, because most of them in those villages, we will count them to be illiterates. Our societies in the past, before we became civilized as it were, we will have been said to be illiterates. But we didn't have so many abandoned projects during that period, even though they were small. So the issue of corruption is not about illiteracy as far as I'm concerned, because there are people that are more educated than I am that are corrupt, and there are people that are less educated than I am and are still corrupt. So that does not really come into play. But probably where illiteracy might come into play is, just like my colleague said, that those that are educated, those who you can quote and unquote call the good men, evil will thrive when good men keep silent. That's the problem. So the fact that you know that this is wrong and you choose to keep quiet because it's your brother, it's your uncle, it's your friend, it's your sister, or whoever that is on the seat, that is part of the problems that we are having. Can we stand up to the people that you call your friends, your colleagues, and tell them the truth? Just like I said now, one of the things that I think we need to work on as institutions is that we should not be scared of engaging the government, whether by confronting them or by having discussions with them. We should not be scared as an institution. But what I've discovered from some of my experiences is this, that institutions are afraid of confronting the government. Why? Is it because they are hoping to be patronized by the government? When you know what is right, why can't you say it? So many institutions that have been able to stand out internationally, it's because they have spent so much on R&D, and they have their facts and figures, and they can confront any government anywhere. And that is what we need to begin to work on. That if you are going to confront the government, you must have your facts and figures. And then you talk to them. Even if they say, no, you are lying, people will see the facts and the figures. And the truth is this. A rich man, whether it's in government or private, they know those who are telling them the truth. They can only refuse to acknowledge that you are telling them the truth. But when they need the truth, they know who to call to ask for the truth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank our distinguished panelists for a well thought out session. When you talked about the village, by the way, something came across my mind. I saw it online that said for us to have less corruption, we need to start asking people to swear by our traditional gods. And the Quran and the Bible does not work for Africans. Jerry Rollins, by the way, said that on social media. So I think we can, when it comes to corruption matters, Jerry Rollins is a professor. So I think that's why there was no abandoned project in the village. Today we've explored a lot of ideas, and I think some interesting ideas came out. First was the idea that we should engage our stakeholders better to have our community-owned projects. We should look at funding plans should be very clear. There must be a clear line of sight from project initiation to how you're going to fund it to conclusion. In that direction, project continuity was also discussed. And the exploring multi-year projects, I think was an interesting idea that came out of this panel, and something that we should consider as a nation, as a state, as local governments. Also, we talked about the ethics of the profession and the need to discipline ourselves as not just as professionals, but also as a people, as Nigerians. And the need to ensure that we have project management officers or organizations embedded in our MDAs to professionalize project management in government. If our biggest problem in government today is abandoned projects, then it's high time for us to focus on it and solve it by professionalizing project delivery across our MDAs. And as a people who are in this room, we can advocate that PMO organizations should now be professionalized across the MDAs and our 3 tiers of government. Also, Prof mentioned the issue of ensuring that we have a mission. We have, as a country, ethos, something we can buy into. Long-term development planning, but more so to have a mission as a country. Where do we want to see ourselves? And leadership, I will communicate that. And last but not the least, I think a sentiment across this panel last minute is talking about advocacy. That those of us in this room, our job is not just ending in this room. Our job is not just speaking to the choir. If we continue to come back year on year and we keep talking to ourselves, we'll have achieved nothing. The most important thing, just the way the lawyers are very good at doing, and the accountants have achieved, and as well as or some other professions, we as project management professionals should leave this room and find our voice. We should find our voices in our places of work. We should find our voice on the streets. We should find our voice in the National Assembly. We should find ourselves on the media. The more noise we make on social media and insist on project management practice and employing and engaging project management professionals to execute projects instead of employing and engaging people who you regard as non-professionals or quacks, then the better for Nigeria and the better for national development. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon. God bless you.
I think this panel deserves a round of applause. Please don't go anywhere. Don't be in a hurry to leave. Whoa. Mr. Goodluck, you're not going anywhere. Mama Chika, you're not going anywhere. Please just maintain your status quo. Mr. Taufik Babayeju, please could you step forward? What is good for the goose is good for the gander. It's not just about project managers alone. It's about us as Nigerians. Us, when we have room to steal and decide we are not stealing. Us, when we have room to take shortcuts and we say we won't take shortcuts. Because in the end, Nigeria belongs to each and every one of us. Before that group photograph session that you think is happening now, would be some appreciation plaques to all of you for being here. In times past, he would have been the town crier of this village sect. So we start with you, the moderator, Mr. Michael, Engineer Michael Oluwagbemi. No. Don't even go there. We'll start. Everybody has a plaque to themselves. And they contributed individually. There was no village money sending anybody to school here. So we kickstart. The first recipient of our appreciation plaque would be Engineer Mr. Town Crier Michael Oluwagbemi, or partner of Lofty Inc. Please check it there and bring it to him. Michael Oluwagbemi. We are looking for it because I know it's there. Wow.
So it's an award of appreciation for contributing to the body of knowledge of project management and what you have done today. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So after you receive, just come to the end here. And next would be Dr. Goodluck Enimakboko. Dr. Goodluck Enimakboko, please. The way he did not remove the button of his jacket amazed me.
On behalf of Promacon, we want to thank you. This is a token of appreciation from us for contributing to the body of knowledge of project management. Thank you very much.
Up next is the man who ate beans the most in that. You're not going anywhere, sir.
Okay.
Come to the side. It's the man who knew that beans was important to height when we were playing with beans that year. Very intelligent. He has called us to order today. So you knew now. You took all our heights. Between the two of you, Mr. Adebowale Oyinleye, Managing Partner, Project Associates.
On behalf of Promacon, I want to thank you. This is an award of appreciation for contributing to the body of knowledge of project management. Thank you very much.
Following up closely is Miss Chiaka Chinyemaka, because I think it should have been a long form of that name. Chiaka Okoye, Director, CRI, Federal Inland Revenue Service. Our agenda, our strength.
So, by the way, Dr. Chiaka, Doctor, is a mentor at Project Management Institute, one of the founding members of PMI in Nigeria. And we thank you. We appreciate you for what you have done for the body of knowledge of Project Management in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And finally, would be the man who stepped up to the deal when it seemed there was no deal. You know, God will always have a reserve for himself. And the God of Promacon had a reserve for himself today. There's no other than the COO of Savant Integrated Concepts Limited, Bolaji Shotunde.
Even though we didn't have an award prepared for you, we're going to give you one and make sure that we get
an award with your name on it.
An award, sent to you. Thank you very much for contributing to the body of knowledge of Project Management. Thank you very much.
So you now come back for the together photograph. Thank you. Yes, you need to hold it forward, please. Excuse me, hold it. Because sometimes we see the front. Gentlemen, could you go to Mushin for me? Just say Mushin. Thank you so very much. Please, a round of applause for the members of our first panel. Wow. So to the members of the Project Managers Institute, Project Management Institute, when next you're tempted to cut corners just because it is in the interest of your pockets and not the generality interest of the people, remember the words of the first panel of this conference today. And to introduce the next panel, please permit me to invite my senior brother, my senior, Mr. Obinna, you. Can I use your mic? Yes, you can.
Please
Please put your hands together for the delectable lady. Awesome, ever vibrant. I was sitting at the back there, and I came in when my very good friend was talking about the vulcanizer. In 2006, my role model and mentor, Sam Ademi, walked into church one day and said, "Yeah, I know why you're smiling. I look like him, yeah?" He says so himself, don't worry. He says so himself. He walked into church one day and said, "Time has come when we will stop preaching inside this church and go to the marketplace and affect the world." I sincerely do not think Sam Ademi knew the weight of what he was saying. In obedience to him, 40 of us stepped forward and were anointed to go contest. What we didn't know was that what the bitter cola sounds in the ear is not what it tastes in the mouth. So I obeyed him, sir. And I borrowed 510,000 from a widow. And I arrived in Umuahia and got to that UBA close to the government house. Prof, you know that place? And I transferred with my own hands 510,000. 500,000 for the national and 10,000 for the state. Talking about that party that starts with a P. The campaign started. And I went around the 3 local government areas, Osiomangwa, Ogunabo, Obingwa. And the people said, "We're voting for you." On Saturday morning, November 16, 2006, 7 a.m. exactly, I was in a vehicle heading to Ngwa High School, the venue of the primaries then. And my uncle, who had been an old politician, called and said, "Obi, no, Obi, that's like, Obi, now where are you?" I said, "I'm on my way to the elections now." So Obi, Biko, result. Now let me introduce you to what I just said. Obi, please stop spending. These people have written this result. I said, Biko, the election is by 1 o'clock after cleanup. So Obi, Biko, stop spending. They have written this result. What I found out, sir, was that they wrote the result on Friday and waited till about 7 p.m. And a young boy from my village switched off the light and switched it on. Within those split seconds, the result switched. By then, I had dropped my resignation in UBA. One year exactly, I was at GoPro, just here. And someone saw me. I said, "Honorable," they say call me honorable. For whatever reason, I don't know. I'm not the one in that place that they're calling me honorable. And I stopped. I said, "Bros, why are you calling me honorable?" He said, "Honorable, you're in Abuja now. Are you in Abuja?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Come and see me in Transcorp." I got to room 5 something in Transcorp. And you know, when men have taken a few bottles, their mouths get free. And the guy hit my chest and said, "One day, I know where they wrote your result." He said, "I'm not interested. I know where they wrote your result." I said, "Okay, tell me." He said, "They wrote it in the house of a certain man. I carried a carton of Capel wine. In my village, you don't carry wine to an elder like this. You put something under. The oboles. Bam. I carried a carton of wine to this man. I said, "Are you the son of Uraba?" I said, "Yes, sir." So your father was a good man. Now here I was in Transcorp, and they say it was in his house they wrote the result. So bros, be careful how you advise these people. I think they should continue wearing their suits. Because what the palm wine tapper sees on top of the tea, he cannot say when it comes down. But also remember that if you're not close to the fire, your yam will never roast quickly. About Tomlin. And when they call you high scent, you're not supposed to rub local pomade. So if you say you're a project management professional You can't give us what you don't eat. We cannot, because a doctor raped a nurse, we will not go to hospital. We will not, because they have been writing the result, not contest. Because since that happened to me, I made up my mind not to run. I have decided to now populate the political space with the right caliber of persons. Because the strength of the king is in his numbers. If we populate that space, we will not have charlatans. Today I stand and I teach public speaking, and you don't want to know the caliber of persons that come to my office and want to learn public speaking. People with LLM. And the first book I recommend to them is Common Mistakes in Grammar. And when they leave my office, they live in a Land Cruiser 2019 model. But if you know the vengeance of the angry, I charge them premium. Clap, don't threaten to clap. That is the retaliation that I recommend to you. So when they come to you, sir, Prof, let them go there, collect your money. To eat what is rightfully your own is not longer truth. The firstborn does not drag the head of the meat. Put your hands together for Project Management Conference of Nigeria. So don't be afraid to contest. We're going to win 2023. Amen. Thank you. Now, like I said, I'm a messenger and I don't speak in parables. I'm the MC. I'm not the one in charge. To take charge here, the person knows himself. Is my brother. In 2012, we walked into the class for the basic management development class of the Center for Management Development. And this guy saw my helplessness. He asked me, do you have this page, Facebook? I said, yes. Do you have Twitter? No. Do you have this one? No. LinkedIn, Uncle? I said, what is LinkedIn? He said, give me your email. I gave him everything. He created my LinkedIn page. Sir, let me testify in your presence. 2 weeks ago, I stood at the Transcorp Hilton as the subject matter expert on entrepreneurship to address the British Council Creative Hustle event. When they called me in Kano, the only thing they asked for was my profile and my social media handles. And I forwarded it to them. So today, I have my name mentioned at the United Nations, and I cannot begin to give the testimony without mentioning Rex Abitogo. He's the managing director, Management Edge. He created my LinkedIn page, and with that page, I have spoken on the British Council platform. It takes one to know the other. A round of applause for Rex. One other thing you don't know is don't let the suit deceive you. He plays football, but he plays only on Saturday mornings.
Thank you very much, Obi. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. For this final session, we'll be looking at the future of project management practice in Nigeria. We've come a long way. The gospel of project management practice in Nigeria has been on for a while. And I think it's high time we take it to the next level. And we have leaders of thought here. We have men that have really contributed to this discourse over the years, and they will be doing justice to this discussion. And of course, you heard one or two of them spoke in the morning. And to start this, I'm going to invite to this other side of divide the panelists for this afternoon session. Please put your hands together for Engineer Bayo Adeola, Chairman, CPMS, the doyen of project management. Also, we have Okay, also to join him at this other side of divide is the President, Project Management Institute of Nigeria, Dr. Lambert Ofuebo. Possibly there are a lot of professors in the academic environment impacting knowledge on project management, but when you talk about professor of project management in Nigeria, we have no other person than our own Professor Gibson Okorafor from Federal University of Technology, Owerri. Has been with us over the years, and you can see him growing stronger. The strategy is adequate project management in terms of his own health. You're welcome, sir. Please permit me to call also my sister, my friend, a professional to the core, Mrs. Oluyemi Shonubi, Chief Executive Officer, Servant Integrated and President, National Project Management Professional. And finally is the main man himself. I think project management, drink project management, sleep project management. He project manages his wife. That's a secret that's known to only me. Is the Chief Executive Officer of iCentral Consulting, and he is the lead consultant of that organization, Mr. Taufik Babayeju. Please put your hands together for him as he joins us at this other side of the divide. My work for this afternoon is very simple, and it will be to moderate this session. And I think at this junction, I can take my seat, and while we put one or two discourse on the table for national development. Okay, I think it would be good to start from our prof, because you can't talk about the future without talking about the present. And you talk about the present when you build future leaders, when you go to the academic environment to really, really imbibe the culture of project management to the students, such that when they graduate from the university, then they really have it as one of the things that go along with the way with them in terms of whatever they become in the future. Prof, sir, the journey so far.
Thank you.
Will you have defined, looking backwards, before we even talk about the future, looking back, sir, will you say that you are being fulfilled at the moment in terms of the advocacy for project management?
Thank you. I have a problem. And that problem is that I say things the way I see them. As far as project management is concerned in Nigeria, I see no progress so far. People here may say, why? When the last team discussed, somebody said about the road in Lagos, how lawyers walked out and challenged government. But lawyers are not involved in road construction. We have problem in project management because we do not have a consolidated body that can channel people, whip people into line. And that's exactly what I believe Promacon has been trying to do all the time, for us to have a group that can give us the direction. Today, every Tom, Dick, and Harry is the project manager. ICANN can get up, accountants can get up and say, this is what we want. And hold government responsible, because there is a recognized body. Today, lawyers can do it because the Bar Association is existing. And so many other people in project we do not have.
Some people think that by having a piece of paper signed by government called a decree or called a law, that it is a project management body. Because we do not have this, we cannot force implementation or call anybody to order. We are just like sheep, scattered, roaming. Anybody who can key what's into the computer, he says he has his own PMP. He posted it and pasted on the wall. He's now a PMP holder. I do not think that is so. We are up to the stage where we should say, this is project management body in Nigeria that government can listen to. Nobody will speak for you if you cannot speak for yourself. Projects are done and done anyhow. That's why even our members, they fight for their personal pockets first, because there is nobody or a system or a group that can say, this is what we must do. And if you do this, this is the penalty. Look at the medicine, for example. They have the medical ethics. You go against it, you are all. Lawyers have been derobed for going against the ethics. Accountants have suffered the same thing. Can we say that about project management? No. Because we are sheep without a leader, without direction. I just don't know. We meet here, we talk, and it goes. Principal people, because what is driving us is personalized interest. Individuals are fighting. I want to be president. I want to be this. I want to be. You must bake a cake before you start sharing the cake. And we are not thinking about what will set us forward. So I always find it hard. We sit, we have, like if I listen to Engineer Deola and I've seen his work, fine, he will do so many, but he can only talk fluently and penalize person in the engineering profession. Am I wrong, sir? He cannot do it in project area because there's no professional body. There's no guiding principle, nothing. That we are members of PMI. That one is just there. I'm a member of PMI, but it doesn't tell me anything about the development in Nigeria. And we're talking about project management in the future. How do we use it to develop? Until we're able to pull ourselves together. Have a unified body and law. I know that there's a group that has a piece of paper called the law that government has signed. But it's a piece of paper that are carried up and down. They cannot do anything. Until we're able to call ourselves to order. And nobody will do it than ourselves, who claim that we know something about project management. If we do that and set up, we'll be able to say, government, this and this, what we have seen you are going wrong in this way. That we write 1,001 times in newspaper doesn't mean a damn. People who are taking decisions are taking decisions. But when we have the right to say, you are the project manager for this project, this is what is going on. What did you do? So, my colleagues, this is the simple thing I want to say at this point in time, because I haven't seen any future yet. Until I see the line, the path I can follow. As of today, we can meet on individual capacities and exchange notes, but there's nobody. Nobody. Those who say Chartered Institute of Project Management, fine, it is good to have it. After account is started, you have the ICANN people before ANAM, before cost management accountants. But there must be a way.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Prof is actually advocating for a common voice, for an umbrella body, and I know that Mrs. Chonubi, there's been some work in having the National Project Management Body. Can you bring us up to speed in terms of the development so far and what the future holds for the National Project Management Body?
Thank you, Rex. Yes, we have had a series of meetings, actually chaired by Engineer Diola in his office over a few years now. But as Professor Okorafor said, we need to get over a hump that that hump includes self-interest, it includes misunderstanding, it includes what I would call a need for recognition. Until we all come together, and I think we're getting there. This afternoon I did speak with the incoming president of the NIQS. I think what we must do and what we plan to do with on the Promacon platform is to engage a bit more widely for that includes QS, get the Nigerian Society of Engineers involved in championing the cause of project management, because it cuts across every single discipline. I was trying to find out if anybody knows event managers, if they have any association. We need to reach out to them as well, because they also practice project management. We all practice project management in different and varying forms, but as Prof has rightly put out this clarion call, we need to do it together. And that is the key and the beginning of where magic happens. And I use that phrase a lot now. Magic is when two or more people come together, common vision, absolving all other issues. Just that one vision, that one goal is what ties them together. That is what makes magic. Because when that happens, the impossible becomes a reality. And that's what, so today, for the future of project management, my call is, come, we're ready. You know where we are. You know where Taufik is. You know where I am. I've been giving out my cards. We need to come together. There's no other way. I think last week we had a meeting with PMI, with their new Africa division, PMI Nigeria, as well as the African representative. And that was the same, I think we agreed. That was the same mandate that we gave each other at that meeting. That is, we must come together. PMI, NAPMP, Promacon, whoever they are, event managers, cost managers, the quantity surveyors, the service managers, which are the engineers. We all just must come together and make this thing happen. And happen it will.
Thank you very much. Now to Engineer Adiola. The discussion over the years has been how to get everybody on board, and the challenge, like mentioned by the two speakers, has been in the area of personal interest. While some bodies feel that we are licensed by government or chartered, and as a result of that, if we belong to another body, there's going to be a kind of division. In your own perspective, what should we be talking about in terms of from different associations, from quantity surveyor, from Nigeria Society of Engineers, Nigeria Computer Society, bringing everybody together? What should be our focus?
Thank you. My thoughts are these. I think that it is a difficult task to bring people with divergent interests together. I think it's difficult. Historically, in the construction built environment space, engineers, architects, quantity surveyors, and the like have dominated the territory. Why should they give space for project management? That is how they will think. After all, it's easier for them to acquire project management competencies in addition to what they have and just go on. Why should lawyers who manage legal projects give space for project management? Why should land surveyors? Why should doctors? Why should government workers? So we then look back and say, how have other countries done it? And if we start from the United States, PMI doesn't have a government charter, but it has influenced project management, not only in the United States, but all over the world. You can think that, well, Prince 2 is some form of government initiative. Therefore, government initiative has resulted in a platform for project managers that has worked. So I've used these two examples. So my take is that we, Promacon, by whatever names, people of like interests, let's start creating the standards. Let's forget all these associations. Let's start growing the standards. Let Promacon add value. Let's have enterprise project management software created by us. Let's have standards created by us. Let's partner with Professor Okorafor. Let's partner with people. And my take is that if you continue to add value, it will be difficult for us to be ignored. And when we get recognized, we will be recognized because of the value we bring to the table. In any spheres of life, there are people with different skills. There are those with advocacy skills. There are those with mobilization skills like Taufik. But there are people like the Prof and I who concentrate on the subject value itself, and our advocacy skills or mobilization skills might not be that strong. Let each person bring to the table his strengths. Let's begin to create course material, curriculum, best practices. Let Promacon set itself model low-hanging fruit standards that year in, year out, we get better. That's what PMI has done. If you look at the first PM book, it was less than 100 pages. Year in, year out, they add value to it, and they add value to it. And they're not asking for a charter, but you can't ignore them. So that's my contribution. This is without prejudice to advocacy. I'm just approaching it from my own strength. Those who have the advocacy strength, let them continue to pursue the advocacy there. But by the time the advocacy is being achieved, what do we want to put on the table? Who is a project manager? What skills must he have? If we haven't built that basic qualifying criteria, we will become empty and we will be ignored.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Taufik now. Looking at the impact of Promacon over the years and effort made in terms of getting other stakeholders on board, can you bring us up to speed in terms of where we are at the moment with different groups and equally developing standards for the national project management development?
Thank you very much, Rex. I think I need to do a little bit of retrospection. When we had the first conference, and I think on the platform of the second conference, a gentleman called Ikenwanko came on board with a presentation, a beautiful presentation about NAPM, which is something that he's worked on for years, which is an association for project management in Nigeria. We had a meeting with the then president of PMI, who was Deji Ishmael, and we agreed to move NAPM as a platform for engagements in Nigeria, because the vision of Promacon was not to be an association, even though from the very first day we gathered the number, but it was supposed to do the advocacy and create a platform for all stakeholders, irrespective of their affiliation, whether PMI, whether Prince 2. It's a platform that galvanizes, stakeholders and different interests. We decided to have that conversation with Mr. Ikenwako, and we progressed to evolve NAPM to NAPMB. Okay, and a lot of people in this room have been part of the trustee of NAPMP. But also without prejudice, PMI played a very big role in helping to galvanize that support, because what we saw in the vision of Deji Ishmael, with all due respect to him, he sees PMI as a global body that creates the standard, the body of knowledge, which everybody needs to imbibe, okay? And also, we need to have our own local organization that can do the advocacy here, while we, irrespective of whether you're PMI or Prince 2 or APM, we can all dovetail onto that platform. So NAPMP started off, but before we knew it, somebody outside the whole network had gone to get a charter and all that. But fair enough, like Ms. Shonubi said, we've had several engagements at Engineer Adiola. A lot of us had to fly to Lagos. Prof had to come all the way from Owerri, to have, conversation around, I think we called it an interim management committee, IMC, chaired by Engineer Joko Sedumi. So a lot of conversation had happened, a lot of engagement had happened. And because we are project managers, we understand the need to do stakeholder engagement. So all we were doing over those years was to map out the real critical stakeholders. We didn't want to go get just a charter. We could have done that with Dimeji Bankole on the first edition of Promacon. We had him in the room. But we wanted to get our acts right, like Engineer Bayo Adiola said, to get a body of knowledge, to see how we can marry PMI standards with Prince 2 and create a track for everybody. So all these are being done. However, I think we're back to the table now to re-energize, because if we put the strength of PMI in the room, which has about 800 registered members in Nigeria, and the network of Promacon, which is over 2,000, and NAPMP together, there's no stopping us. We don't even need a national an act of parliament. Nothing is going to stop us as project managers. And I think that is the conversation we should be having, that how do we galvanize all these interests so that we can move forward. And luckily for us, we have in the room the big elephant, which is PMI, and wearing the red cap, I think. Wearing different caps, APMP, PMI, and Promacon PM foresight. So I think it's time we need to crystallize, all these behind the scenes, and have a roadmap to how we really want to add value and take project management to the next level. Thank you.
And now to the president of Project Management Institute Nigeria, Dr. Muhammad Fuego. I know way back 2005, the discussion about having a Nigeria chapter, or way back 2003 started with Umore, and thereafter we were able to get PMI Lagos, and at the point we started talking about PMI Abuja, and eventually we were able to harmonize these different subgroups, chapters, to form what we call PMI Nigeria, which means that we're in the right direction. And I equally know that the whole model about chapter formation for project management global body is about domesticating project management. So now we have the discourse here in terms of having the national project management engagement, so to say. Engineer Bayo Adiola has talked about need for having local standards, okay, best practices, such that this if anybody pick it, irrespective of the industry that you come from, okay, you know that this is based on our own environment. And I know that PMI is equally pushing for things like this, especially encouraging national project management in different countries. From PMI point of view, what should we be focusing on in terms of having that common front?
Thank you very much. PMI, like we all know, is for advocacy of project management best practices. It is about capabilities and best practices. Frankly speaking, when the people that got the Act of Parliament got it, I was excited. Why I was excited was because, for me, it did not matter then who got the Act of Parliament. I saw it as what we all have been fighting for, that we have gotten it, but gradually I am getting disappointed. The reason being that it still baffles me why somebody will have an Act of Parliament to herself. What do you want to do with it? You know, it baffles me. That's the typical Nigerian problem. Meanwhile, in PMI as of today, we are gearing towards 900 members. What am I doing with it? We've tried to be in a position whereby somebody should come, because we have our standards, so many of them, starting from business analysis, PIMBOK, competency framework development, risk management, scheduling, and all the extensions to PIMBOK. I see them as low-hanging fruits with already made membership and interest group that you can say, okay, now we've gotten the Act of Parliament. This is what we are for. Can we start with all this your standard? And you have it. And we shouldn't be having this discussion now if these things happened. To Promacon, so many. But let's not go through that route, because ours is for advocacy. And for PMI, it's a global organization. We are open. Then back to your question, if you look at PIMBOK carefully, for each of the 49 processes, you keep on seeing enterprise environmental factors. Enterprise environmental factors. At a glance, you say, this is repetitive. But when you go deep down, you now see that a set of enterprise environmental factors for charter development is not the same with managed team. It's not the same, they vary. So that gives us a leverage whereby you can use to domesticate the standards. I had some discussions with Engineer Adeola yesterday and Traffic. I think the right way to go is to see how we create products for our own use. It could be standards, it could be using those, because PIMBOK is a guide. It's a global standard, and I want to let us know, when PMI publishes a standard, I've been opportune to be part of some of their standards. They have representatives from every continent. I've been fortunate enough to represent Africa for more than 5 times. Every continent, industry-based, and all that. They do it, experts do exposure drafts. So it's not what you just call one consultant, I'm doing a standard, please let me. No. Then, after the exposure draft, they will do adjudication to know that these, they expose it. These are people complained about this language. Do we change this? Do we change that and that? Then they still publish it and give notice, this is what we have published. Then it is now a global standard. And for each of the standard, they have a space where you can take it and run with it. So that's what we should be discussing. Unfortunately, I will not be discussing too much on national body, chartering body, but for each approach we take, as long as it's for promoting project management best practices, I am ready to talk to my colleagues and we sign PMI Nigeria onto the platform, because at the end, it should equally be a low-hanging fruit for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It gladdens my heart that you said PMI Nigeria will be signing on whatever we come up with. I think we have identified the common problem here. We've identified that there's need for us to have products for use, and which buttress the point made by Engineer Deola in terms of having standard practice developed and for use. Some countries have taken this initiative a step further. For example, Singapore has established Center for Public Project Management. Project Management Advisory Group has equally been established in the UK. Qatar also has taken that same initiative. And so far, for the UK government, they've been able to raise about 100 billion naira in terms of project fund for infrastructure and project authority. Now, it raised the question of the need for Office for National Project Management, or National Project Management Office, in terms of engaging government. However, to be able to achieve this, it means that there must be adequate knowledge of project management, people speaking common language across the MDAs, okay, which equally raise the need for capacity building. So, I'll start with Engineer Bayo Adiola. How can we get the Office of National Project Management, our National Project Management Office, how can we start conversation about this? Because you can't talk about standards and practice without engaging the government. So it becomes a very important marriage between these two bodies, the advocacy group as well as the government. Because if you're going to develop standard, definitely it means that for you to take it far, government must equally be aware that you have this working for you. How do you think we should be, what should be the approach to having National Project Management Office?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but I will tell you what I think about it. For instance, 95% of what KPMG does are projects. Yeah. Projects are so diverse and wide that I don't understand. We need to have a consensus, a discussion among ourselves to say, what will the National Project Management Office be doing? Is it for construction projects? Is it for elections? Is it for events management? Is it for censuses? Is it for, what is it for? I don't understand it. And when I look at PMI and I look at Prince 2, they haven't approached it that way. PMI gives us a body of knowledge and it says fit it into the sector in which you find yourself. And what they did for a long time is to have what they call special interest groups, where a group of people